afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Global Learning Office GLOVicariously webinar series. My name is Jessica Smith-Soto, and I'm the Program Manager for the program GESI Vietnam. Today's topic is Vietnam after the war, globalization, and youth equity. To introduce our panel and moderate the discussion, we have Nan Pham, the Program Relations Manager in GESI Vietnam. So I'll turn it over to you, Nan.
Thank you, Jessica. Lovely to have everyone here today. My name is Ngân. I'm been very proud to work in GESI in Northwestern for the GESI program for the past 3 years. We're based in Vietnam, in Hanoi. So today we have, as Jessica introduced the webinar, it will be about Vietnam after the war, youth, globalization, and youth identity. The webinar will last approximately 1 hour, with a presentation by our panelists and followed by a Q&A section. You can mute, but feel free to yourself to fill in the question in the chat box, and we will collect the answer. We will collect the questions and then answer them by the end of the presentation. You can turn on your camera to participate, or you can turn them off. It totally depend on you. And we'll launch a quick poll by the end as well. And now I would like to introduce our wonderful panelists. So today here we have 3 main panelists. First, I'm want to introduce Jade at 1890. So Jade Chase is a first-time documentary film director, producer based in Boise State, Idaho. The enormous powers of storytelling led him to found 1980 Productions. You can see here in the room is him with his team. And they are an award-winning team of filmmakers and advertisers. He began dabbling in documentary after traveling to Hanoi, Vietnam in 2017, where he made the film to introduce the story of Vietnamese nationals who were born during and after Vietnam War. He's also a veteran of United States Air Force and a history buff. That's why he became interested to learn what happened in Vietnam after the United States left the country in 1975. And he also loved to working in his work. He loved to highlight the cultural change in population, learning how and why generally choose to communicate stories. And he's gonna tell you later about his work and the film later on during our presentation. Next we have Nancy Nepper. Hi, Nancy. So Nancy is also our honor chaplaincy today. She's a PhD and distinguished professor emerita at Boise State University in America. And so previously, she's also served as the adjunct professor at Aalborg University in Denmark. She had published widely in the area of organization, creativity, innovation, emerging economies, and also publishing on Forbes Vietnam. In 2017, she received the Medal of Friendship by the Vietnamese government for more than 20 years of contribution to building the relationship between Vietnam and the United States. It was the highest honor that been given by the Vietnamese government to our foreign friends. So it's our honor to have Nancy here today. And last but not least, I want to introduce Miss Ha. Ha, can you say hi? Yeah. So chị Đậu Thúy Hà is the chairman of OCD Management Consulting and also OMT Online Management Training Company. She has more than 20 years of experience in business development and customer service, working with a lot of big names such as Daewoo Corporation, HP. Together with Dr. Nancy, she's co-author a recently book called The Bridge Generation of Vietnam. The book is a compilation of profiles and essays relating 3 critical time periods in Vietnam recent history, from wartime to modern time to modern development. So beloved, so she's from the perspective of a person who kind of the bridge generation between the older and the young generations. She's going to tell us a lot more about how Vietnam had transitioned and changed so far in the last couple of years. So yeah. Without further ado, I think I'd love to start our talk today on Vietnam after the war, globalization, and youth identity. And I'll give over to Jade. Jade, can you?
Perfect, thank you. Let me see if I can get the screen sharing to work appropriately. And yeah, we've got a video clip for everybody. So I want to make sure I share it appropriately. I don't want to do that. Oh, let me try again. Sorry. I finally picked the right one. I hope everybody can see that okay. Perfect. Well, thank you for having us. Like I said, I'm Jay Chase from 1890 Productions, owner and operator. I've got my team here of film crew that went with us to Vietnam to make our documentary about the transition from a culture of we to a culture of me that we're seeing in Vietnam. And it fits really well into the topic that that is being discussed today about globalization and youth identity. So we'll jump kind of right into it. All right, so where in the world are we talking about? And David here has an interesting story to kind of share with everybody. Before we prepped for our trip to Vietnam to go and film our documentary about we to me, so I'll let him say.
Yeah, so we obviously had to go get vaccinations and any kind of thing. So we have a travel medicine place, and I called them up, and they're like, "Oh, where are you traveling?" And I'm like, "I'm going to Vietnam." And she's like, and she was a younger woman, I could tell, and she's like, "Vietnam, like, is that in Africa? Like, I'm not finding it." And I'm like, "No, it's Southeast Asia. It's Vietnam." And she's like, "Oh, interesting. I wonder where that is." I'm like, "By China." She's like, "That's so interesting." It was very, I was like, wow, so this is a unique place I'm going to that younger generations don't really know about too much.
Yeah, I think, and that story kind of paired well with kind of what we're seeing and what you see in a lot of Americans too, that they might know of Vietnam because of the war, but they don't necessarily know where it is or what's going on there or know much about the people other than maybe it's a travel destination. So it is in Indochina, shares a border with China, Laos, and Cambodia. It's very tropical, as you can kind of see on the photo there to the left. As we experienced, bring a lot of shorts and t-shirts with you when you go there because it is very hot and humid. It's a beautiful country and one that we very much enjoyed being a part of and visiting. So quick outline of what we're going to cover today. We're going to just give you a quick look at the past history of Vietnam from an American standpoint, from kind of 1960s on. Talk about some of the massive changes that we see happening today, especially in the Vietnamese youth. I'll tell you a little bit about my story and my journey of what my perception of was Vietnam and how that has really shifted over my 2 trips that I've been there. And then we'll get into some more focused topics about how the internet is causing some globalization and change amongst the youth and some social awareness and community building things, and obviously the Q&A. So get those questions together, make sure you share them so we can discuss them at the end.
And Jade, I want to make sure that
Yeah.
we can all see the presentation okay. If you could click use slideshow, I think that might be easier for us to see the slides on a larger screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see.
Because we're seeing the presenter view.
Oh, you
Right.
are? Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to see, I don't see one that says view.
I think you're, on the right.
Let me try this. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So sorry. I need to do some globalization work of my own, so I know how to do this stuff. Okay, so thank you. So what we're looking at here is kind of a quick little past history of Vietnam. So as many people might know or may not know, Americans fought a war in Vietnam about 40 years ago that kind of started in the 60s and progressed into the 70s with the United States finally leaving in 1975. And then the North and the South really being united at that point in 1975. And the picture that you see there on the left was taken in the early 1980s by a gentleman that we used. His photos, luckily from his experiences during what was called the bow cap era, when the US left in 1975. There were a subsidy period started in Vietnam. And obviously there was a lot of famine and hunger at that point as the Vietnamese people tried to recover from the American War and then prep for other wars that were kind of on the horizon. And so there was a subsidy period, and a lot of people unfortunately suffered from hunger and famine, and they had very little. But from that point, which was 40 years ago, to a current photo that we took with a drone just this past year, I mean, obviously drastic changes from kind of a poor country to this global, emerging economy. And I looked up today, I think they're 44th in GDP ranking in 2019. So obviously a drastic change, and you're seeing people that were born at that time that are now running companies like Hawk, and just this economy that's just exploded onto the world stage, and is doing some wonderful things. And their people are experiencing a lot of good things because of that. So, and like I said, in addition to the economic changes, obviously there was this war-torn country that just fought all these wars over many, many years, different occupations by other countries, and now they have their freedom. And you know, it shows over a 50-year period how they went from war to a picture again that we took of just some young young kids that we took on the side street that are, one of them's dabbing over there, you know, something very American, dance moves, you know, happy, they have a lot of food, they have shelter, they have a lot of things. And so finally at peace, and thriving because of that. So what we see nowadays, and what we saw from our travel, was obviously, you know, a culture and a community that have come a long way in the 40 years, you know, since my parents knew what Vietnam was about. So what we see of Vietnam is a lot different than what they saw. And you know, because of this opening of the borders, so after BAOCAP, that subsidy period that I was talking about, there was an opening of the borders and some economic policies that allowed the economy to thrive. And because of that, we saw a lot of technology and worldly views and some semi-capitalism type economies that were established in Vietnam, and that's brought a lot of wealth to the people. And as I talk about the we and me in the documentary in conjunction to this, we, you know, because of that shared suffering they had during the BAOCAP era, during the subsidy era, there was this huge community to come together to really survive that time. And with the opening of the economic policy, and with the economy growing so quickly, people were able to worry more about self-actualization. So if you think, and I think one of the best ways that's been described to us about the documentary as well is, you know, during BAOCAP and after the war, it was very much, you know, the lower levels of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just worrying about, hey, I need food, shelter, basic things in my life. And then with the economy growing and wealth coming in, people now don't have to worry as much about those things. So they can start thinking about self-actualization, kind of the top level of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so they can focus more on me. What do I want to do? What do I want to be? I don't have to worry about finding food. So maybe I want to go, you know, and be an artist, like one of our subjects that we're going to talk about. And so there's been this huge transition, and you know, that's what we see in Vietnam today, is a transition of this young group of individuals in their early 20s, teens and 20s, that have those ideals. See if it's going to advance for me. Perfect. So one of the ways that these young people are trying to connect to their past is through some interesting phenomena. One of the ones that we found for the documentary that's really interesting was these Kong cafes, or these BAOCAP cafes. So, and this is Kong Cafe, Kong, and I'm not pronouncing it right, but I think it's Kong. It's short, means communism in Vietnamese. And so these cafes, although they look kind of fancy and rustic at the same time, are supposed to be decorated in the BAOCAP style, that style that was very minimalist because of the subsidy period that was going on. But they serve like amazing drinks. Like the coffee there is awesome. Internet cafes, they have Wi-Fi, and so these huge hangouts for young individuals to come into. And it's a way that we think, and highlighted in the documentary, that the youth is trying to connect to their past. So again, they didn't get to experience that subsidy period, but they're interested in it. And from a documentary standpoint and storytelling standpoint, it was very interesting to hear why they were trying to do it and how they were trying to do it. But as you can see, this young man is sitting on his iPhone here at a very comfortable, nice coffee shop, and you know, sipping his coffee, and that is nothing like what the actual BAOCAP era was like. And so kind of a disconnect there, but a very interesting kind of cultural phenomena about how this youth, you know, are trying to still be about me and express who I am, but also still trying to connect to their history and their past. Oh, it's not working for me. I'm sorry. The next thing that we saw a lot while we were over there during our filming, and something that we wanted to highlight too, is kind of this idea of the vintage clothes that kind of goes along with the BAOCAP style. And this is one of our stars of our documentary. Her name is Det. And Det is really into the bao cap style and embracing the vintage clothing. And on the left there, you can see she's at a vintage clothing market with one of her friends, shopping for these clothes and picking out bright colored clothing, you know, that is trendy at the same time as representative of the old time of the bao cap era. But I think there is a disconnect there that we really discovered, because people that lived during the bao cap era, like, sometimes they didn't even have a shirt to wear. You know, and if they did have a shirt, it was, you know, generally white. They didn't have the ability to color it and get these extravagant, you know, patterns and things of that nature. So although, you know, you see these kids saying, hey, we're connecting to our past through the bao cap style and this vintage clothing, sometimes that clothing doesn't really match with what really occurred during that era. So just another interesting phenomenon that really explains the we to me and shows the we to me. So ultimately, what caught our eye for the documentary was kind of the story of Det and this idea of the Vietnamese youth and how there is this generational gap between their parents, generally, people that were born during the war in the 70s, and now have kids that are in their 20s, and how these kids in their 20s are really trying to find themselves and how they fit into this globalized world, when their parents lived very much in mud huts and, you know, had very little to eat. And you want to talk about a generational change, like, I don't think it could be any more drastic than that, to go from mud hut to, you know, an iPhone and a Con Cafe sipping a fancy drink. And it created a very interesting story that we were so blessed to be able to go over and help tell. So at this point, hopefully we're kind of on schedule here. I'd like to show you the trailer from the documentary of We to Me. And here we go.
Jet, you want to turn on the video music?
Is it not playing?
Sometimes what happens, Jade, if you share your screen, you could try unsharing, and when you click share, make sure to press share computer sound, and that helps.
All right, so it says you are sharing screen with sound. You are sharing computer sound. Let me try stop sharing, I'll try it again. If not, I can just pull it up on my laptop. Click, there wasn't. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. So it says share computer sound, that's there.
As a child, the most rememberable thing for me is the hunger. Bao Cup is a traumatic time in Vietnam for the whole country. What happened is not the way they expected to do for the people, the opposite way.
In Vietnam, Bao Cup kind of means vintage. It's like coming back to your childhood home.
Young people.
Okay, it might be buffering.
Their 20s have a nostalgia for the Bao Cup area.
Okay, I'm gonna try sharing again, see if I can just play it off my desktop, okay? So sorry.
Back to meeting.
Yeah, can I go back to, how do I go back to meeting? Okay. Wasn't that gonna want me to minimize this?
Those kids,
Okay, let me try to start it from about here.
young people in their 20s have a nostalgia for the Bao Cup area. those kids have not undergone that period. For them, it was fun. For us, it was hell.
They don't understand. They can't imagine what it looked like, especially young people. In our culture, they always try to pass experiences and advices to the young one. They want them to listen, they want them to obey.
To my dad's generation, I think his definitions about happiness were all about wealth and money. In my generation, we started to feel like happiness wasn't about money. It was about expressing ourselves, freedom of speech, of mind, and of creativity. I just want the equality for women in Vietnam and all over the world. We all have freedom to express ourselves and to chase our dreams.
Okay. Hopefully everybody got to see that in pieces. I'm going to try sharing again and see if I can get back up to our PowerPoint. Oh. Okay, well,
through that.
Technology. Thank you. Thanks for everyone's patience. I'm sorry. It's out on YouTube. Go out and watch on YouTube. Watch on our website again. Hopefully it'll play much better in that situation. So sorry about that. But so what you see on there is one of the stars of the documentary, Det, talking a lot about the changes that she's going through in her life and kind of chasing her dreams. And that's very different from the experience that the other stars of our show, Vu, who was the food collector and collected food for his family during the Bao Cap era, and Chien, who is the fighter, who spent his whole life just fighting for a better life and trying to get a better education. I think he's got like 6 master's degrees now and things of that nature. Like he had to fight to get to a point to where he could be comfortable with his life and, you know, and provide for his family. And we're seeing a youthful generation that is now able to, because of the prosperity in the country, go out and find new things that they want to be involved in. And Det is passionate about her art, and she's passionate about some other social movements that I think are happening in conjunction with this change that we're seeing in culture, from community to we to me to individualism, like feminism. You know, she talks a lot about how in Vietnam, if the men can play, then the women can play. You know, if the man can do something, then the woman can do something too. She's very passionate about that. And I think in conjunction, it also goes with, we're seeing an indie, an independent music scene, an independent filming scene that's starting to grow in Vietnam. And just these things that, these social movements that just haven't been there in Vietnam are now there. They're on the front stage. And there's very passionate people like Det that are pushing those along. And at the same time, we see these individuals like Vu and Chien that were born during the Bao Cap era that are saying, hey, that's great and fine and dandy that you want to do that, but don't forget your past too. And don't forget what it was like to come from where we came from to where we are today. It didn't just appear. They had to fight hard for it. And they had to make some really tough decisions. And so as much as Det is saying, I'm going to go be myself, you have the other generation saying, don't forget about your past. So that kind of really hopefully helps explain what we to me is all about and the change in the culture. And there was a change in me in my journey with Vietnam. Like I said, I went in 2017 as part of the Boise State Executive MBA program, which Nancy Napier was one of our esteemed professors, and I went with her. My past, you know, I was exposed to parents that grew up during the Vietnam War, and Vietnam was kind of a very negative word, negative term, you know, and I wasn't sure how I felt about going to a country that, you know, my dad, who was drafted, he did not fight in the war, but he was drafted, you know, and his friends that died in the war were very, you know, it's very negative about, hey, I don't know about you going over there. You know, it's a communist country, you know, just be careful. And, you know, I was very apprehensive when I first went over there. But as you could see, once I got there, that's me in the black shirt, like I felt very welcomed, and my perception completely changed about Vietnam. Again, it took a couple days for me to really feel comfortable being in a foreign country, and I was in Hanoi, and the communism capital of the country. And but I told myself that I wasn't going to be persuaded by the perceptions that others had put on me, and I was going to open my eyes up, and I was going to take in country and make my own come to my own conclusion as to how I felt about Vietnam. I can tell you it's very positive. Like, I came back and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to go back there again, but like, it was pretty amazing, and the people were warm-hearted and welcoming. And I will be the first to have traveled all over the world, and I have never walked around a country that I was a foreigner in and felt more safe, which is an amazing. I mean, when I went to Africa, there were times I was worried that I was in the wrong place, but when our entire team walked around Vietnam during my second trip, and and we felt very safe. So I kind of went from this, I don't know, why would I want to go to Vietnam, to I'm ready for my third trip. There's a lot of things that I still need to accomplish over there. There's so many more people I want to talk to and meet, and it was just overwhelmingly positive. So, and the one thing I kind of maybe left out a little bit, I did serve, and I think it was mentioned in the beginning, I did serve in the military, in the Air Force. I didn't fight in combat. I was an RN, a nurse. And so, but as a nurse, I took care of a lot of retirees and people that fought in the Vietnam War. And it was an interesting perspective for me to go there and say, here's a country that a lot of my brothers and sisters that fought, a lot of them died there, and I think that's been put behind us, and we've been able to move beyond it. But as a service member, I felt it was very interesting for me to be there, and it was transformational to say that, hey, we fought a lot of wars with a lot of different countries, and we've been able to get past it, and I can get past that one, and I can look forward and look towards greener pastures. So Nancy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this one here. That's all you.
Very briefly. So as Jade mentioned early on, Ha and I did a series of interviews, profiles of people in her generation who were born during wartime, lived through this very serious famine period, hunger period, and now are leading the country in so many ways, in education and business and government, nonprofits. And so we wanted to find out about their lives and what they experienced for several reasons: to build a bridge between Vietnam and the United States, to build bridges between generations within Vietnam, and maybe even to build bridges within families of Vietnam, maybe who have split and live in the North and the South and had very different experiences. So that was a basis for the film. When we were putting the book together, a friend said, I can see this, it's visual, why don't you take a look at it? And the theme of we to me had come through with so many of these people we profiled, because they said their children really didn't know much about that time and didn't really want to know much. And I think part of what the film tries to do is show both generations and how they're trying to understand each other more.
Perfectly stated. The book is out on Amazon, so go buy it. You can read all about it. So I want to let my team real quickly, because I know we're running low on time, about their experiences too, because it wasn't just mine, it was theirs. So we were there for what, 11 days?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Torn.
Almost 2 weeks. I'm Torn, and I guess based off my first time traveling to Vietnam, one thing that I found very interesting was the excitement and the curiosity in the youth. Being a 6 foot tall American walking the streets with a big backpack and camera equipment, I definitely stood out a little bit, but it was more, I guess, interesting to see all the children coming up to me, wanting their photo taken, wanting to be a part of what we were doing, and just having the curiosity, kind of like you see in this picture here on the left. The young boy came up and honestly started just touching my camera and wanted to know how it worked and what I was looking at. And it was just a really cool experience to be able to shed some of my knowledge to the younger generations there. Yeah.
And one thing that happened with me, so in the picture on the right, we're in a market, and one of the coolest things that we got to do is we got to really kind of get into the daily lives of people in Vietnam. And it wasn't just like going over there and seeing sites, like we got to see how they live. And that's Vu at a market shopping for his dinner that evening. And in America, we go to Costco and we buy our dinners for a month and then just cook on it. But over there, especially with Vu, he would go buy all the food he needed for his dinner that evening. And so everything was always super fresh. And we even had lunch with his whole family, and they cooked it all for us. And it was amazing. And these markets are just a few blocks from his house, and you can go there and get meat, vegetables, anything you think of. It was basically like an Albertsons here in Idaho for us. They can just go to and get all their food very fresh, and it was really cool to just be a part of the culture and see how they work.
Yeah, a lot of community at those markets. Everyone was very welcoming and everything. So and quickly, we had some amazing food there. Coffee is amazing. It'll wake you up. Not only wake you up, if you're like down, it's going to put you straight up in the air.
Man, it's
very
strong.
And we love it. And then the pho. I think we see pictures of pho now. Like Pho Tin was our favorite place in Old Quarter in Hanoi. We're willing to fly back just to eat a bowl of that stuff because it was amazing. We loved it there. We loved the culture. And two quick more stories. Torin, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess something that we found interesting was basically on every corner or crosswalk, there would be like little stands, and it'd be like a single person selling some drinks or goods or like little snack food. But as we were walking around filming with Det, she wanted to take a little break, and this is what her and her friends would do: is they pull up a chair and they get a cup of tea. And so we enjoyed the experience with Det, as you can see on the picture on the left.
And then on the right, it's a pretty fun picture, but that's after like a day of 14 hours of filming. We came back and we're like offloading footage, and like every 15 minutes, like the whole block would just like, like erupt in like a scream. We're like, what is going on? I'm like, I gotta go check it out. And so I went outside, and like every like bar, tavern, coffee shop, wherever had like a sheet hanging up with a projector with it was the Vietnamese national team, soccer team taking on Indonesia. And everyone was watching it. You can hear them all in like the apartment buildings, on the street. I'm like, this is so cool. And so I had to go, and like, I just walked over there, and I felt very out of place. They were super nice. They're like, hey, come on over. Like, we're having Baja noise, and we're having pitchers of beer and drinking and watching soccer. And they just took me in, and we spent hours just having fun. It was a great time. So soccer is a lot of fun to watch with the Vietnamese people.
Yeah. So, and I think the thing to highlight here too is that even though the culture of community that Vu and Chian shared during that tough time, the Bao Cap era and afterwards, the young generation is creating their own community. And that's really what we're trying to highlight too in the documentary. You know, you see Det on a cell phone, and her friends go and sit on those little chairs and sip coffee and drinks and on their cell phones, and they go and they watch soccer together, and they're very passionate about their sport. You know, two things that I don't think anybody in the Bao Cap era really experienced, but that's what the culture is turning into now. And you know, a lot of the same things that Americans that we experience and love, they do the same way. They just might do just a little bit different. So I'm gonna quickly hand this over. If you want to know more, you can about the documentary. We got a website. Follow us on Instagram at We to Me Project. And if you want to read more about the book and about hopefully what's more to come for We to Me, because we do have 3 other episodes planned that we're planning and hopefully can shoot when the whole COVID thing is done. You can buy the book and pre-read it, and then wait for the documentary to come out. So at this point, I'm going to pass it off.
Hi, so greetings everybody from Hanoi, Vietnam, and I'm continuing a little bit after from Jess and his team's discussion about the Vietnamese youth, because I'm actually working in and leading a tech startup, and you can't really talk about Vietnamese youth these days without talking about the internet. Right? You just see that's, you know, our young hero from the documentary most of the time be on the internet, and that's true for the rest of the Vietnamese youth and also not so young people like myself as well, because we are truly a Vietnam an internet and a deeply globalized country by now, and so that's why it has really lots of implication for our young people, and it is actually quite fascinating to watch those developments and how the internet and globalization has changed all the perspectives of life for our younger generation. As you can see, you know, before COVID, internet has already fueled lots of, you know, online this and online that, online shopping, everything in Vietnam. And I don't have the numbers after COVID by now, but what I can see every day, you know, from my office is that looks like our people, our young people, especially those in the cities, they don't really go to those traditional markets or anything no longer. They ordered everything online, and the shippers are, you know, running across the city, busy, you know, bringing things from one place to another. And as you can see here on the numbers, that shows that more and more things, including the big things like you know, technology, home appliances, are now bought online. I don't think we have gone so far as China, where they actually sell homes, you know, buy homes and cars online. That has not come to Vietnam yet, but I don't think it would be too long before that. But otherwise, you know, my younger colleagues in my company, they buy all their phones, you know, laptops, and all the fancy, you know, everything online. So yes, the buying behavior, the shopping behavior of our younger people are so very markedly different from, you know, from me, like from my generation, what we have experienced. And one more thing is that they are much more global in the sense that they are travelers, they are globetrotters, much more than our generation. And that is understandable because they, you know, they actually have parents who partially pay for their going abroad. Here I on the right hand side, I show the numbers of Vietnamese students studying abroad, where in the US during the recent 5 years period. And even though you don't really read Vietnamese, you can easily see how many young Vietnamese people every year go abroad. This is just to the United States to do their studies. And that includes not just you know, university studies, but also, you know, high school studies. And I think as of now, we have almost 30,000 Vietnamese students doing high schools and universities in the US. And they come back, they actually influence other, you know, younger people at home. And just like Jade said, now Vietnamese use, you know, building part of, you know, like global travel, even to next door countries or further to North America, for example, as a part of their, you know, life and experience. Jade, could you actually help me to flip to the next slide? I don't want to like take too much time, and I would like to have time for Q&A. Yeah, and so continuing on the internet and globalization theme, for our young people, it's actually also great that they don't just see being becoming an you know, like a government employee, or, you know, working for bigger companies or for banks as a career. Startup founders is now a very legitimate founders, and we already have like unicorns founders, startups in Vietnam. And this short graphs here says it all. Vietnam now has, you know, apps for everything, just like internet and online shopping for everything. So that is also, I think, a quite exciting perspective of the youth of Vietnam. They don't really have to do the traditional work that their parents, like my generation, does, but no, they work on themselves for themselves. Yeah. Okay. I think we should move on for Ngân.
Yeah, so thanks, Chị for your part on globalization. So actually, I think it's time for the Q&A. So the next part that we prepare is about Vietnamese youth and their participation in social activism. But I think it actually tie really well with our first question that I have received from students. So I think we can move quickly through these through the part on community building, and then I can address the Q&A section really quickly. So this part is just some of the data that we collected, which show that after the đổi mới and the Bao Cấp area that have been shown in the documentary, the increase in the number of NGOs is like 10 times from 1990s to 2012. And basically, most of the people who participate in the movements are people below 40 years old. So you can see in the graph, it shows that more than half of the people, 60%, are below 40 years old, and then equal divide between people who take part in registered NGO and also other community-based clubs, independent movements. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I want to quickly showcase some of the social projects that have been happening in Vietnam, such as LGBT women rights advocacy. And I think this can tie quite well with our questions, so we can quickly move through this slide. So this is also another NGO that's working on social innovation and environmental conservation. So for example, the founder here, Miss Nhung, she's in her 30s, and we're very excited to work with her this upcoming fall for the remote internship with Northwestern. Basically, they teach local women in the coastal area of Vietnam how to turn plastic waste into beautiful handcrafts. So it's both give income to the local women, but also it's a way to sustainably recycle this waste that otherwise would be dumped into the sea. Next slide, please. And also it's quick action. So I think it's a very recent movement that interesting. Back in March 2019, when COVID first hit Vietnam, the first wave, you know, a lot of people have been losing their incomes because of social distancing and quarantine. So that's why Tuấn Anh, who is a CEO in his daytime, he's in his 30, he started an innovative idea of opening rice ATM in Ho Chi Minh City, in Saigon, in the south of Vietnam. So basically, this ATM machine give out free rice for people in need, and people can just line up during the day, you know, to take rice from. And from that one ATM machine in Ho Chi Minh City, now it has been the new model has been populated across Vietnam. So now more than 15 cities and provinces across Vietnam having their own machine and run independently by young Vietnamese. Most of them are young university students who they collected money donation through banks, and then they build their own ATM machine in their community and open it to people in need in their cities. So that's one of the examples that show that you know, the young people have been harnessed the power of social media and also their power to mobilize and then, you know, start turning to action quickly. Next slide, please. So yeah, so even though there are still a lot of challenges to young people involvement in social activism in Vietnam because of the generation difference, and we see the different in set of values, lack of systematic support from the government, and unsustainable. But we've seen a lot of positive change so far, and you know, we're excited and to see what the future may hold, what other creative approach that young people want to take for you know, to make their change, to craft their own path in Vietnam through this social activism we've been seeing. So that is a very quick recap, and I would want to open the floor to a question. If you have any questions about Vietnamese, how Vietnam is doing today, actually related to COVID or young Vietnamese people identity, then please feel free to send it over to me. So we have the first question. I think it's a very relevant one. I would like to ask the question open the questions for the whole panel. I think we're gonna have different interesting perspective here from both US and Vietnam. So the question is that Vietnam has experienced relatively few COVID cases, but according to the data checked by Johns Hopkins, there have been an increase in confirmed cases in recent months. In the US, however, COVID is currently being spread among and by younger generation who are generally low risk, but seeking some normalcy in social life. What influence, if any, do you think the we to me phenomenon has had on the spread of COVID in Vietnam?
I could take that. So all of our filming was done pre-COVID. Obviously, as you can see, it's running around without masks on and all that. And at this point in time, we've turned the whole film around in under a year. Huge shout out to Nancy and Ha for helping us do that. But it has not been released yet in Vietnam. So right now it's entered into multiple film festivals, like I said, and we're trying to find some financiers to help us complete the series because we see 4 episodes total for it, using Nancy's book and Ha's book as kind of the base for it. And then hopefully COVID will be wiped out to some extent, and we'll have a vaccine shortly. And then we can get over to Hanoi and down to Ho Chi Minh City and show it and let people watch it and interact again with our Vietnamese friends. But at this point, I don't think it's had much of an impact because we haven't been able to do any screenings yet, which is unfortunate, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
One other comment, I'm a bit pessimistic. When COVID first started here, I thought, okay, maybe we are a me country. Maybe we will go from me to we. I don't see that happening as much as I had hoped to. Some, but not as much. So we in the US are not doing as good a job at containing this and moving past it. I think we have a long time to go yet.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, yeah, chị Hà, can you?
I think from, speaking from the ground in Hanoi, we just have one more confirmed case in Hanoi right here. I really appreciate that the me generation, the younger generation, they are actually on the forefront for coming really fast back to the community, to solidarity, and actually doing all kinds of innovative things, just like the ATM, the rice ATM that Ngân mentioned, and many other innovative and very quick response things to help contain COVID. Just like fast 5 days, I was very fortunate to be in a team. And do you know what they do? They actually make, entirely, manuals for schools to come back to normal, including all the COVID safety measures for 63 provinces and cities in Vietnam, and they made it customized for each province. Each province could have one set of their own, school manual, how to come back to school manual, with their, logos and all the healthcare hotlines for that particular province, and 10 more posters that they already made, ready for print. And it is actually something that they done. I just don't know how much, graphic art design work that they have done. Everything very, very fast, so that it can be rolled out today to UNICEF Vietnam, and it's rolled out to all the provinces in Vietnam. And all those things are, of course, like free of charge, just contribution, and the whole idea is just great by the young generation. So I think that is some of the very spectacular ways the me generation are coming back together with themselves and with the broader community to help, if not fight, then contain, COVID.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting, and it's actually, I think it's part of the ways to show by the younger generation to show their identities, to making change by their own, and not waiting from from bottom, from the ground, and that kind of thing. And we have another questions about culture. I think it be about cultural differences. So, what culture differences or cultural shock that you've seen that Northwestern student or American student that you have been hosted, versus how are they different with local young culture? I think with more suited towards Lucy and Julie, we've been working with a lot of students. Jimbo, want to answer? Yeah, I think. Okay, wait 1 second. Stop. Can you turn on your? Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I have seen the culture shock from my experience, yeah, there are many stories. I try to think about what kind of story I would tell you. So, for example, if you stay in a Vietnamese family, at Northwestern at GESI program, we place students at the Vietnamese family by homestay program, and during the time they stay there, we try to explain and let the student know that you are a family member of the Vietnamese host family. And one time we was very shocked, not from Western University students, but just a story in general. Students say, I feel like the family member is a spy. Like they check everything so carefully, and they want to know what time I won't be home. Who do I go with? Something like that. And it seems like everything is reported to someone. And the students feel they do not have freedom, and they feel like always have someone observe them. So that is or another story. When the student just arrived as a family, and then the Vietnamese friend asked them to go out and hang out to buy some other stuff or discover the city, and she's not ready to hang up the clothes in the wardrobe, and the mother just check in the room to make sure that whether she everything in her room is ready for her. And she said that tomorrow she's going to work, so she helped her to hang up the clothes on the wardrobe. And then when the student came back, and she was very surprised that someone touched my personal thing. So the mother was quite shocked, and didn't understand why the student was upset. But then so we try to explain that in Vietnam, the family, that means how family means in Vietnam. So we really care each other, and sometimes you feel that you do not have freedom there, but that's how we care, and that's the one example we normally show the student. What does it mean a family member in Vietnam? It's just one example.
Yeah. Julie, is there anything you want to share?
Oh, well, for me, actually, I haven't really worked with students from Northwestern, but for students from the US, especially, like for the last semester, I worked with students from Princeton mostly, and from the feedback and from the conversation that I had with them, mostly, the first impression about Vietnamese is that they feel that it is very easy to feel close to Vietnamese, and because we smile a lot. That's what they feel very different from the American friends of them. Like it's not really easy to break the ice with other American friends, but for us Vietnamese, like we smile a lot and always show, like a happy face. That's why, they feel very strongly connected, even though it's just a remote internship. And another thing is that we talked a lot about food, and most of the time when I share the photo with the students, all the response is that I never tried it before, and we cannot find this in America. Or maybe like, especially when I show them some exotic food, they feel scared a little bit, but they surely want to try it. So I think maybe food is one category that may be very different from the US cultural. And to all the US students, if you have a chance to be in Vietnam one day, I think surely you should try the cuisine in Vietnam.
Yeah, I think food is actually one part of the Vietnamese culture. So we not talk about food just because we eat it, but it's, our culture is the way we bond with each other. So yeah, I think hopefully with the rise of I think that we've seen a lot of other more Vietnamese restaurants in US nowadays. So it's way easier to connect. Next question. also about culture, I think it's also geared toward Vietnamese who have been working with American, especially heritage-seeking American students who have Vietnamese heritage and coming back. Could you speak a little bit about your experience hosting or like meeting, working with them? I think at the border we also have quite a number of students who are Vietnamese American or like Canadians coming back, and for us, all these people, all these students already have a very special stories to tell. Chị Mơ, do you want, Lucy, do you want to share about story of Brian and how he's find family in Saigon?
Could you say the question again?
He's asking about sharing your experience about hosting heritage-seeking American students in Vietnam. Yeah. And we have a lot of these stories. Yeah.
Yeah. So we hosted a number of Vietnamese American students through our programs, and there are two cases that's always a nice story to tell. That one student, she was born in the United States, and she had a chance to come to Vietnam several times, but just to visit orphanage. And when she decided to come to Vietnam, her mom was so worried about her decision and keep asking her, be careful, otherwise you would be cheated. Until I asked her to let me talk to her mom directly, and then her mom said, okay, I let my daughter go. Then we placed her in a Vietnamese family. The first time she was quite quiet and tried to observe what's going on. And she kind of understand what people talking about, but she doesn't know how to respond. And sometimes the way she responds makes Vietnamese feel funny. But after a month, that she feel very convenient with the family, and then the two mothers become friends with each other. And the student said, I think now my mom visit Vietnam just visit my host mother, not to visit me. That's one story. And another one, we hosted another student. He never be back to Vietnam after 40 years. And he came to Vietnam with a photo when he was a little boy, and the memory from his mom said his house was in Chợ Lớn, and the host mother silently found his relatives in Vietnam, and it was the first time they met each other after 40 years via Skype. So that, yeah, it was really interesting. So the language barrier could be something you still face, and it's become a funny story for Vietnamese when you speak not regular Vietnamese, but we still understand. But it's very touching when you find your roots again, and when we heart you in our family.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, we love to, or we love to kind of receive and host the people, because we're finding that it actually helps us, especially for young Vietnamese who, to actually learn more about history, learn more about different generations, and learn more about country or identity ourselves. So that always a memorable experience for us to having these heritage students coming back. So yeah, again, I would like to thank everyone for your joining today, and let's give another round of applause for our panel today. I know that it's been, early morning and late evening for a lot of us, and we appreciate your time, taking your time of day, and we hope that this somehow have you connected or even learn a little bit about Vietnam or the country. And if you have any more questions, we'd love to, stay connected. We at a brother with Northwestern, GESI, GLO, and 1918, we all love to, just connecting people and share stories. So we welcome a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to send it to us. Even you have our contacts, share on the screen. And yeah, with that, I would like to kind of conclude our panel today. Thank you everyone again. And the next week section on GLOVicariously webinar will be on political, public health, psychology impacts of COVID-19 in the former Yugoslavia region. So also another very interesting and relevant topic. I hope everyone going to tune in next week. And until then, take care and have a rest of your day. Stay well.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.